Oh, he was pointing the other way, wasn't he? You have to have a valid question. I believe that's the most important thing. If you ask the wrong question, then you will get the wrong answer. I know I've done that. I assume some of you might have done it. The wording, the way you ask the question is very important. How many of you already do create your own spreads? 3, 4 including me. So I'd say that the most important things to do, besides from the question, is to have a main topic. What are you asking? What do you want to ask of the cards? Is it about career, love, etc.? What progression you want? So, for example, do you want to better something? Do you want a specific answer? Do you want a yes or no answer? Some people don't work with those, but sometimes you do. I know I was talking to Esther earlier. When I use yes or no question, I tend to use my pendulum more. But then again, not everyone has a pendulum or use dowser, so that's not something that might suit everyone. There are different methods for doing yes or no cards. And also, deciding how many cards do you think you need. Like I said, 3, 4, 5, 13, the whole deck. There are spreads that use actually the whole deck, like the Thoth one. There's what's it called? The opening of the key. I've seen that done once. It gave me a headache. And so on. So basically, I was going to keep it very practical. First of all, I wanted some suggestions from you, especially not so much the ones that already do create their own spreads, but the ones that don't. If you were to, for example, since this is about resolutions, so if you were, for example, you find yourself in January 2014 and you want to change in career, so you want to know what will my career opportunity be in 2014. How would you go about creating a spread from scratch without taking inspiration from anything that you already know? Anyone? Any ideas? How would you go? What would you pick first?
I can't read for myself, so I've never ever been able to, so I actually don't ever ask myself a question.
Say if you were picking it for a client then.
Yeah.
Like, say the client comes and says, I don't want you to use the Celtic Cross, I don't like it. Could you please do something else for me? And I would like to know about my career. How would you go about creating a spread for them?
For me, it's literally the thing, it's just cutting it until I feel it's correct, and then I lay first one, second one, third one, and from the 3, I get a very good idea of what's happening. But then, as she continues to talk, let's say, and ask more questions, the cards will flow, creating the pictures that lead through the story of what you...
Do you find yourself using a certain number? Do you see that maybe there is a constant in the number of cards you use, or it's different all the time?
It can be different the majority of the time, but it's quite interesting you say that, because at the end of it I'd probably say there's 6 on the top and 12 probably by the end of a reading.
Cool. Anyone else? Heather, maybe? No?
No, because I always use the same, the same spreads for myself, so. But how could you, if I was to think out of the box and try something new? Yeah, I mean, what you're saying makes a lot of sense. You get the 3 cards and then you take it from there. I can see that.
Do you actually name the three cards, or you just read them as a flow? Do you say, like, the first card is past, present, future, for example, or you just go with the flow and see what the cards read?
It depends what she's asking me. So, but for me, sometimes when those cards are laid, I can say to her immediately without anything, I'm just going to let you know that now the cards that I've laid, I can see that the first 2 cards will be your past.
Okay, that's
so
interesting.
I know that before she has to tell me. I mean, she does. She says, yes, that's happened. And I say, I believe that from card 3 on, now we're in the present. And then I get to the fact where I say, cards 6, 7 and 8 will be your future. This is now what is going to happen. But then I always often say as well, if it's not a very pleasant card along those lines, remember that you now know that that is the path that you are taking, but we can change that path because you have now an idea it's going to happen.
Yes, I think as you bring that point, as you make that point, someone posted the other day something from one of the Mary Greer books. I can't remember the exact quotes, but it was to the tune of, it is amazing how the decisions and action we make in our life, we tend to repeat them all the time.
Yeah.
No matter what the cards are telling you, the cards will tell you that the path is going a certain way, as you're saying, remember that, and yet you will still plunder along and do it the same way again. I mean, not obviously, not always. Some people will go off the path and perhaps make a different decision. But yes, you can change it. Or you'll know that you're going there now if you don't change.
Yes.
The way I like to do it, and I don't know if it's going to help anyone, but since I have a photographic memory, I find it much easier to remember things if I see them than if I do anything else with them. So I use acronyms a lot. For example, like when I created the focus spread, so FOSTUCS, in which F was what I fear, the focus, in my focus. Sorry. Hi, sorry, I closed the door for less noise. Take a seat, and we have started, but it's fairly practical, so it should be okay. I'll give you a handout. Did you find it okay? Sort of. Right.
That wasn't the only thing that made me late.
Oh, fair enough. Okay. So where was I? I use acronyms a lot. So F was the F of focus in the spread was fear. The O is obstacles. C is challenges, and so on. You can make those up. And you go on. Oh, the other one was the fear spread, where again fear was standing for what I fear. E for expectations. A for ambitions or what you want to achieve, achievements, and the results or reality of the situation. You can use any acronym, but it helps me to remember if I just write it down. So if you could even do a long one. It doesn't necessarily have to be 4 letters. You can do 2, and then just remember it that way. But mainly, it's important to actually create it with a focus on 3 things: your question, what you want to achieve, and the outcome or result. Now, do you think there is a difference if you create a spread in having an outcome card or an advice card as the last card?
One's set in stone and one's not.
Sorry?
One's set in stone and one's not.
Nothing is set in stone in tarot.
When you say outcome, that's the impression it is.
Yes, yeah.
Like that in a way.
Whereas advice, you think people would be more inclined
Yeah.
It's open, more open, isn't
Open,
it?
yeah. Do you create your own spreads, or do you go with usually formats that you already know?
I have kind of welded spreads together to suit new purposes in the past.
Okay. So if you were to give me an example again, and we were to start creating spreads now, I jotted down a couple of questions that came to mind, but you don't necessarily follow them if you don't like them. The first one was, what opportunities will I have for a new career? And the second one was, how can I improve my spiritual path? But it can be another one if you want to use another question. Those are just 2 questions I put down. I know they're fairly common questions in terms of what people ask. Or if you don't read for yourself, as Dominic was saying, then questions that are asked of you as well.
I have tried, but when I read seriously and I really studied it and I wrote down every single thing and really worked at it, I was actually supposed to be dead last year and my husband was supposed to be in prison. So it is not serious. So I just know that I can't read for myself because I'm not dead.
A big change.
No, seriously.
It's a big change.
I tell you, when I wrote it all down, it was what was going to happen, and it was mainly my husband, and it was literally that he was going to do something that was unjust and not right, so there was a leading off into that direction, and then he did something and he got caught by the police and he got actually sent down for it. But he's never, so I know, and I did follow it and I did wait for it, and nothing like that happened. And it said I was going to become ill, hospitalised, and then there was a silent situation whereby I wouldn't get through it. That was my reason. So I cannot read for myself. That's why I was asking you, because I need
But
to
the
learn.
thing is, it's reading for yourself. Reading for we did that topic before, and it is a different.
Interesting.
And it's difficult. I do it all the time, but I sometimes overdo it. Sometimes, like I look at the cards and I'm like, it really doesn't make any sense. Sometimes I think that happens because you're not meant to ask, or you've asked the wrong question.
Yes.
or you've asked, like I've just done like 10 times in a row, and they're like, hey, you know, now
Yeah.
I 10 times in a row with the same question. But
You wouldn't take that meaning for the client, would you? If you were reading a card.
Oh, I'd never read it like that for a client.
Why
No.
not for yourself?
Well, because that was when I was just starting. I thought I will just read it, and I studied it very precisely. This and read the book and wrote down exactly what the books were stating on the cards.
But tarot
That's
isn't
where-
precise.
Yeah.
That's where I
It's
think.
very personal.
Maybe.
Yes.
I think the only time when I created some spreads, when I was having a terrible time around November, December last year, and I was reading the cards actually were correct now that I see them in hindsight.
Yeah.
Going back to what I wrote, they were absolutely spot on.
Yeah.
But not the ones when I was getting a bit worried about certain things, and I started trying to do timings. So I was doing a spread, creating a spread for myself, and then drawing another 2 cards for timings, and the card completely wrong, completely totally wrong. They're never wrong when you read, never do, never wrong.
Right.
But in that instance, I asked, okay, when is this going to happen? And he gave me the 7 days and November swords. It was at the time, it was 7 and November. Nothing happened at all. In fact, I walked away from the situation and I'm still fine. And, it was completely incorrect. So sometimes maybe, I suppose that could be a topic of contention in a sense, because some people might disagree or agree, or I don't know. But I would say that, for example, I brought this deck with me, which is, you don't have to have it, it's not I'm not doing a promotion for it, but I kind of acquired it because I was curious. And it's basically a set of cards that give you the chance of assigning positions to different spreads. So you got topics, people, what outcomes, influences, and so on. And you can just play around with the cards. So for example, you'll have like romance, your body, your career, and so on. And you can just place the cards as you go along. This is called the deck of 1,000 spreads. But going back to what I was saying before, if you were now to say, okay, if you don't do it for yourself, then just assume that you have a client that is asking you, how will my romantic relationships be in 2014? And you were to go now to create a spread of however many cards. Who wants to have a go first? You can write it down and then use it afterwards.
Well, I would want to do like a spread. Where is the client now? Where are they emotionally with themselves? Because you can't really get into a relationship if you've got baggage or you've got things that you need to work out within yourself. So maybe starting something like with that, and then advice on what the next step can be, and then what is the most likely outcome if you deal with whatever's holding you back emotionally, or whatever blocks you put on yourself in order to meet other people. So it's kind of like steps that you can take in order to put yourself out there so that you can be more involved with other people.
So I
Well,
get.
when can you ever be, and that can keep you without baggage and not have things that you still need to work?
But it's all little steps, right?
Yeah.
But identifying.
So see what?
Yeah.
So you turn the spread
Where are
out
you going to
with,
start?
but you've got to go
start
forward
somewhere.
anyway
You start
into
somewhere.
the world.
Some people
so to
go
speak.
backwards.
Yeah, some people do. They're just
I mean-
doing the same thing.
Yeah,
and they
round
do
and
that.
round.
Yeah, round and round. That isn't the same as going forward, is it?
And if you're not honest with yourself about what you're really feeling,
Yeah.
then
Well, that's it.
yeah,
You're stuck.
You're stuck.
You're stuck.
Mhm.
Yeah. I like that.
Well, I kept it I usually keep, as I said at the beginning, I keep it very simple. The two that I put in the actual handout are pretty much what I do. 4 cards, outlook, what to avoid, what is the best action to take, and outcome. Then the second one, excuse me, past, current influences, future influences, obstacles, advice and outcome. So there you have both. You have an advice card and an outcome card. So it's not like, don't really say set in stone, but it's, I suppose the word outcome does sort of suggest sort of finality to it in a way to someone.
Or maybe even splitting it out. If you don't address certain issues, what is the outcome? And if you do, what is the outcome? So there's kind of like a choice.
It's always a choice.
the most difficult for myself is formulating the question correctly.